Welcome, weary travelers, to Recorder on the Dutchman. Today we begin our first of 3 Halloween episodes, which I believe you will find very spooky. I am Jeremy.
I'm Pete, and I'm scared.
Yarg, I'm Matthias, and I'll cast ye from the yard arm.
I'm Katie, and I prefer Castaways off the wall.
Hmm. This was definitely a change of pace, but we haven't actually done a Redwall book for a while, so.
Yeah, it was weird to actually read something this week.
Ah!
Wait, what is this read you speak of? I do not understand.
Yeah, well, to be more specific, it was weird to read something that didn't have a bunch of pictures in it.
Yeah. Last book we read was Salamander's Run, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
Oh.
But today we are covering the first of the 3 books of the Castaways of the Flying Dutchman. We're covering parts 1 and 2, The Ship and the Shepherd.
It's very short for this first 2 sections.
It's an origin story.
And no, we don't begin with a novice in an abbey tripping over his own sandals. Oh no! This book, we're going to keep this, as I like to say, call this show Dim and Friendly. We're going to keep it there. But this, I'm just saying out right now, if you're listening to this with your kids in the car, I'm warning you right now. This book goes over much darker territory.
Yeah, this book is definitely targeted towards more mature audiences than the Redwall series. There are some similarities between the two, but I'd say how action is used is very different. Like in Redwall, for the most part, it's action sequences, kind of like you'd see in a summer blockbuster movie. This is more of just, hey, here's some violence.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you think we think it's darker just because they're actual humans instead of animals? Because there's some pretty dark stuff in Redwall too. I just don't know if it hits the same way if it's animals.
I don't think, well, I think that's part of it, but it's also just like some of the themes in it, the fact that, I don't know, some of the stuff that's in it just feels a little bit more, like some of the descriptions of, let's say, the end of the ship are a little bit more intense than some of the stuff in, say, like the Bellmaker, where I put this in my notes saying that the Bellmaker was more of, here's our adventure on the seas, where this is more of the captain's crazy, the crew is full of drunken murderers, and God, who's gonna die next?
Yep, and speaking of God, there's direct references to God.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up here too, because where Redwall is deliberately, I won't use the word agnostic, but uncommitted would be a better way to put it. There is an explicit, like, they do grace, Redwall itself is home to a religious order. Now, but we don't know of any major deity that they actually worship. It's more just kind of a generic nature. Where in this, not only is this like explicitly Christian, sort of, it's one of the major plot devices that gets thrown down.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say. Well, I said explicitly Christian. That's not true. The Lord, quote unquote, is mentioned, and there is an angel, but that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, this does take place in the quote unquote real world.
Yes.
This is like actual locations on the planet Earth are mentioned. Like this is actually taking place on Earth. It's not like Redwall where it's, well, we can kind of loosely interpret of what it is, or it's like just a mystical land. It's like, no, this feels a lot more realistic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is definitely, you can chart the locations and plot a course of how they probably went from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I gotta double check this real quick. Brian himself was a bit of a sailor in his youth, right?
Yes,
he was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and he also,
right.
I think, got a lot of stories from sailors. He grew up around the docks of Liverpool, so I'm guessing a lot of his early sailor knowledge and stuff that he's drawn upon came from those stories that he heard in his youth.
Yeah.
And you can still tell that like he really enjoys writing about like a crew on a ship. Like we saw this a lot in The Bellmaker, and in this one you can tell like there's a lot of attention to detail of the workings of the ship. And again, a little bit more realistically looking at it, as we'll get to it, but like in the Redwall books, the villains are sort of wantonly killing their crew sometimes, but in this one it's treated very differently.
Thankfully, Brian is not God, what's his name? Herman Melville with Moby Dick. If you've ever read Moby Dick, and I've tried,
I've tried too.
Genuinely tried. It is some of the most driest fiction you will ever know. I mean, through sheer cultural osmosis, most of us know the basic story points.
Mm-hmm.
But Melville himself puts in about 90% of that book is exceedingly dry. Just it's an information dump about sailing, about whaling, about that practice.
Mm-hmm.
So, thankfully, that's not the case here.
No.
Because I don't know that I could make it through it.
Yeah, no, Jake's definitely does it more paced as an actual story, and the detail he provides about the ship and its workings help to push the story forward and give you a bigger, more like world building, instead of just exposition dumps.
Yeah, that is definitely appreciated.
Yeah.
But this story literally begins with a introduction. We have a narrator who this is their only appearance as of so mostly. There is some very nice poetry later to come, which we'll touch on. But this introduction is nothing like we see in the Redwall series, like at all. It's I don't know how do I classify this really.
Well, I think it gives the appropriate atmospheric and kind of unsettling edge that will take you away from the image of here are these bright green trees and blue sky and a redstone abbey and animals, and let you know, hey, this is actually really serious. And yeah, you don't want to read this at night with the lights off with a flashlight under your covers being like, oh yeah, I'm getting away with reading this. And no, you're gonna have nightmares.
And if you're thinking this is going to be similar to what Disney pulled off with Pirates of the Caribbean, no. No, it's not. Well, there's no Davy Jones, number one. The captain is named something else. And if you're thinking this is like the SpongeBob Flying Dutchman, no. No, it's not. This is... I don't know the actual legend of the Flying Dutchman. So I can't really comment on, if Brian took liberties here, but this is treated far more seriously. And yeah.
So before we delve in, what's everyone's experience with this specific book?
Not at all.
Well,
actually. This came out in 2001, and that was probably the last year I was even paying attention to the Redwall franchise. I was a junior in high school. Jeremy's the same age, so I'm sure that was people too. And I was just like, I was done. I was moving on. Tagarung had come out, and my brother, who had picked up Triss, read it, but he was kind of equally frustrated with the franchise at that point. And I'm like, I heard, oh, Brian's putting out something new. I'm like, I just kind of shrugged because I was like, no, I want to move on. So I did. I didn't even touch it. And I kind of, looking back on this, I kind of regret this because this is definitely different.
Yeah, I bought the hardcover copy like the first day I saw it in a bookstore. And normally with Redwall books, I waited for like the paperback releases, but for this one, I was like, oh, it's something, this is something new. And who knows, will it get a paperback release? Who knows? So picked it up, and I remember like I definitely enjoyed it when it came out, and it didn't have like I was kind of waiting for like the big action set piece, kind of like the Redwall stories would do, but it doesn't have something like that. But I remember I enjoyed it enough. I reread it a couple of times, and I did check out the 2 sequels to it.
I didn't read it when it came out. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years later that I actually picked it up and started, being interested in something else by the same author that wasn't of the series, the main series. So I don't really have a distinct memory of reading it, although I do remember checking out the audiobook version and listening to that and greatly enjoying it. I have all 3 books. I've read them at least several times each, although my favorite is admittedly the second one, The Angel's Command. That book is fantastic. Yeah, I don't really remember it having like a super big impact on me, not like a lot of the other books in the series. But yeah, good memories.
I don't remember exactly when I picked this one up. I think I was obsessed with Audible when I was in early college, and I just typed in Brian Jake's name, and I was like, well, I read all the Redwall ones that are out so far. What else does he have? And so and I was looking at the summary, and I saw, a boy and his dog. I'm like, uh-oh. Because inevitably, when you read a book about a dog, the dog dies, and then it makes me cry. I can't even talk about where the red fern grows without bawling like a child. So,
oh God, I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
So
my entire 5th grade class cried from that one.
Oh my God. I can't even get into the details. But anyway, so when I was, going through the first part of this book for the first time, as soon as I found out that they were immortal, I was like, yes, this is great.
Spoilers.
Oh, yes. Well, hey, you find that out in this part of the book. I ain't spoiling nothing, sir.
Yes.
We're not there yet, though.
Oh, okay.
No sequence breaking.
Sequence breaking.
So our story begins first with captain of a ship, Dutch sea captain, being contracted by a Chinese gem dealer, and basically it's a classic scene. They're basically in a bar, and it's like, okay, you want to. They're basically reaching a business deal. This Chinese gem dealer wants him to transport emeralds from, I presume, China to the Netherlands. So doesn't it says my agent waves in. I don't know what that.
He's going to a place to get a thing from a guy, and when he gets back, he gets some gems, and
he gets more things from more guys.
Yep.
Oh, he was supposed to go to South America, so in modern day Chile. Okay.
He gets a shining green stone, and now we know why time has no meaning for the Dutchman crew, because he got the time stone.
Oh.
Okay. Cracked it. Anyway.
And I'm going to commit my own spoiler faux pas here. There were 14 million futures in which he tried to go around Cape Horn, and he didn't get around once.
Nice.
But the captain's making the deal on his own, and meanwhile we go to a random kid, 14-year-old, who is running
from his evil stepfamily. So he's like male Cinderella.
I was gonna say
this is Disney-esque, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I was gonna say, since usually if it was a female character, we would have this discussion. So I'd like to have this discussion for Nameless Boy. Do we think he's a Marty Stew or Gary Stew or whatever, especially later in the book?
Good question. Honestly, I'm gonna withhold judgment completely here, mostly because we haven't finished the book.
Right.
But from the short bit we have, I'm gonna lean a little bit. I mean, maybe it's more like hero fulfillment, which so you're a 14-year-old kid reading this book. This could be you if you had a terrible family, and you were enslaved on a 1600 ship,
kept in a basement, and then trips and falls into more slavery. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be this kid.
No.
No.
This Peter Parker. This guy isn't, because Yeah, his life kind of sucks. We're basically told outright that he never knew his father. His mom died shortly after remarrying his stepfather. He is mute. He doesn't know how to either cannot or doesn't know how to speak. And his stepfather's family just kind of treated him like a jerk.
Yep.
Yep. Bjornsson, the herring merchant.
Indeed.
And so yeah, this is our more slavery.
Yep.
So far, that is one of our connections to the Redwall series. Child slavery. And,
Orphans.
Yep, and orphans. And we go back to Captain Vanderdecken, who we find out really needs to pick more loyal crewmen because apparently his entire crew is plotting against him.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and address this outright. Look, if you read any literature of this era of sailing, or even watch a good couple of movies like Master and Commander on the Far Side of the World, ship discipline in that era was pretty tough. Like, if you signed on, you were expected to obey a captain. And I won't say that, people were encouraged to be cruel jerks to their crew, but it's not uncommon. If you've ever read books like Mutiny on the Bounty, or, well, hell, we already mentioned Moby Dick earlier. Yeah, the captains tend to be jerks, and this guy's no exception. I'm sure there were other captains in the era, both fictional and real, who more had the respect of their crews and, ruled like that. But when you were making Redwall villains look more talented with your own people, I mean, I didn't have a bad feeling about this guy outright till almost the very end. But yeah, kind of a jerk. And not least is not telling his crew what the job they've been hired to do.
Yep.
Well, part of that has to do with the fact that back in the day, a lot of sailors were actually pressed into service or tricked into service in one way or another. There's stories of British sailors who were basically in a tavern. Somebody would give them a free drink, and there was a coin at the bottom. So when they pulled it out, that was considered technically on the law to be accepting payment for services rendered, and they would be pressed into service. And it's like, yay, you serve the queen now. You're going off to basically serve on a ship. Hope you don't get scurvy.
Yeah. I mean, with the Redwall villains, I mean, you can go, saying like, even as insane as like Gabul and Sarmina were, they at least tried to take out the people that betrayed them. Granted, a couple of them ended up taking out other people instead because they were so crazed they thought they were killing the one they were actually after. But they at least tried to keep a loyal crew with them. Whereas this captain's like, I know you all hate me, but I'm keeping you anyway.
And I mean, he's not killing them willy-nilly. He has reasons to either beat them up or later kill them. He's not Ungad, for crying out loud, but
yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Putting it mildly.
He is, the way they portray him, at least at first. I mean, obviously things deteriorate as this goes, but it's more of he's just a tough master to the crew, and it's like when they do their jobs, he's at least just like, okay, good, you did your job. I'm not giving you praise for that. But when they don't do their jobs, it's all right, I'm going to beat you with a rope now.
Yep.
And
Captain
to be fair,
Vanderdecken is
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Captain Vanderdecken is the CEO of his ship, and accounting, and middle management, and HR.
Yes.
And they all hate everybody.
Yep. And to be fair, he has a right to be angry when his entire crew goes and gets drunk and then doesn't show back up again.
No. At one point, he sends the cook and a couple of the sailors to go get just raw supplies, and they don't come back because they're all drinking.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the rest of the crew before we go on, because there's a couple of like genuinely terrible people, and then there's like one or two like normal or even just lawful neutral, I guess is the best way to put it.
Less terrible.
They're normal
Yeah.
compared to everybody else.
This is
Yeah.
true.
Uh,
we don't really meet a genuinely nice person outside of our two main heroes until the second book.
Well,
until the
right.
second section.
I'm actually going to stand up for Vogel because he isn't outright nice, but he does, at the very least, point out when the captain wants to kill the mutineers. He's like, "Yeah, you do that, and we're going to be short-handed here. Do you really want to do that while we're in the middle of the sea?" And he even, at the point towards the end of this first section, when they are that low on rations and it looks like they probably are going to die out here, he points out, "Yeah, you may want to turn back." Now, I don't want to say what happens to him for pointing that out, but
Yeah,
he's less evil than the rest of the crew.
this is true. He kind of he takes the position of first mate. He does a much better job than the previous first mate, and it makes me think there was a quote in in an episode of Star Trek where Worf says, "I serve the captain, but I speak for the crew."
Mm-hmm. And the rest of the crew are either unnamed, and then we get three other members I bothered to write down. There's the mutineer crew. There is Scraggs. Ah, I see what you did there, Jake. It was English, the original first mate, and one of the mutineers. We have Jimmy.
And he's really, well, I was going to say Scraggs is really kind of a weasel.
Ah!
Dun, 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 dun.
We have Jamil, who is another one of the mutineers and likes stabby things. He's told he has a short little knife. And Sin, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce
He's
it.
barely mentioned.
Yeah, that's how it said in the audiobook.
Okay, he's barely even mentioned, so as
Yeah.
the other mutineer.
He's silent partner.
Ah. And then we just have the one who I actually practically cheered when he gets killed.
Yes,
Spoilers.
same here.
Everybody hates him. Everybody knows his name. Petros.
Everybody hates Petros.
He's the Greek cook who ultimately takes on the kid as his assistant. So.
And it's so funny because in the audiobook, Petros and Luis, the shepherd, are played by the same guy.
It's like when it starts, it's like, oh, because Neb, or we find out his name is Neb, but like the kid washes up on the ship and looks half dead, and at first Petra's like, I'll take him because he looks alive, and it's like, oh, there's someone here who might care. Nope, he's taking him because it's like, if he lives, I'll make him my slave. Like, okay.
Yep.
No.
Well, darn kid.
Jeez.
I mean, even though, here's the thing though, a general maritime law is that if you pick up someone who's like adrift at sea, you're supposed to at least take care of them. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to making them work to some degree, but outright, the captain, when they first find this kid, he's just like, well, someone either shove him back over the side or keep him on, I don't care.
Yeah.
And everyone but the cook is like, okay, let's shove him over the side. And the cook's whole rationale for keeping is like, I need an assistant because we left port without one for me.
Although I suspect it really was more along the lines of, I'm not that great at my job. I want somebody else to foist work on.
No,
Yeah.
he really isn't.
That, and also, I'm assuming he's just extremely lazy in general. He's like, well, I don't feel like doing this. You cut these things. Do this. And actually, in fact, later, at one point, the kid does take over as chef and everybody likes him more.
I noticed. Yeah.
Hashtag Neb4Ship Cook 1620.
Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, the short version is that the kid runs away. His stepbrothers are chasing him with the intent of bringing him back, and are probably beating him. And he slips off the cliff.
So, no, he gets punched in the face and falls backwards into the water.
Yep.
So he tries to stand up for himself.
And the stepbrother's basically like, oh, oops, oh well.
Yeah. At first he was like, oh, what have I done? And he's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well,
No, he was
we'll
just worried
say
that
we
people
couldn't
had seen
find him.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Because they're expecting him to die. So yeah, they're taking the hyenas out of Lion King approach to, getting the job done.
Yep.
All right, so which one's Cheech, which one's Whoopi Goldberg, and which one's Frank Welker?
Considering they're not named, doesn't matter. They're not named.
All it matters is that they didn't make a Mufasa joke, and that makes me sad.
Oh man.
So yeah, the kid somehow grabs one of the mooring lines that's still in the water from the ship, and
because the person who threw it in there was too lazy to pull it back up again. They actually said, like, the guy undoes the rope, lets it drop, and then goes inside where it's warm.
And yeah, the kid managed to pull himself just enough on ship to, like, not die. And passes out. And that's when the captain sees him, he's just like, whatever.
Yep.
And yeah, he wakes up in the galley, and the cook, is so kind to him, and he gives him a free meal, and it's like, okay, you got work to do, pal.
He gives him like half a meal, and then slaps him and goes, "No, you work." And then I tell you when you work, I tell you when you sleep, I tell you when you eat. I'm probably not going to say the second two very often.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, this kid has some bad luck. He's not having a good time.
No. And the rest of the crew is kind of ambivalent towards him. They don't hate him, and they don't really like him either, but the genuine opinion is, even though he is mute, is like they think he's a spy for the captain.
Well, not yet. I think at first they just talk about stuff in front of him.
Yeah.
Because Jakes makes a point to say, all fools who think that someone different from themselves is dumb and can't understand. I'm like, yep, I've definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
Definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
And the funny part is, like, Petros talks to him normally, and it's obvious the kid is understanding them. And as soon as Petros learns that the kid is mute, then he starts talking to him like he's an idiot.
Yep.
Huh.
Like,
You
wow.
take to Captain, understand?
Yeah. It's like, wow.
Oh, man.
So you're telling me he's Turl from, crap, what's the movie? Battlefield Earth. I guess I'm the only one who gets that reference.
I don't get that reference.
I do, but I'd rather not compare anything to Battlefield Earth. Well, I'd rather not compare things I like to Battlefield Earth. So.
Oh, noted. But I am, just for the record, I am calling Petros an ugly alien played by John Travolta.
Sounds good.
That's not wrong. I'm not saying your comparison is wrong. I'm just saying. Yeah.
No.
Now we just need Petros to start chewing the scenery.
No,
nice.
I mean, I won't say he doesn't do that at points.
No,
so.
This is true. And Neb, well, he names him Neb, short for a Neb. I know how to pronounce
Nebuchadnezzar.
And
I watched The Matrix recently, so that's why I know
it. And we can see that, since Neb is silent and everyone kind of treats him indifferently, he's able to judge the crew and captain pretty straightforward. Like, he's like, well, the entire crew will probably kill me if I cross them. The captain's not a terror. He's less bad than them, so I don't think he'll stab me.
Yeah.
And the captain definitely creates like a dominating presence over the rest of the crew. Like, he carries himself larger than life and just mainly demands obedience rather than, well, he does beat them into submission, but he only does it in like these extreme cases. And it feels like he's very different from some of the villains in Redwall who are like, well, you tripped, so now I'm going to just step on your face.
Yeah.
So Vanderdecken is lawful evil.
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to agree with that. I wouldn't call him chaotic by any stretch of the means.
At least not yet.
Maybe, yeah, I was going to say, maybe toward the end here.
Yeah, he does kind of descend from here.
While the crew is in a Danish port town, and fortunately Neb is chained to the stove. Yeah.
Yep. And the cook is like, cut up this pork and cabbage, which, by the way, pork and cabbage.
A random stray dog just Neb sees a random black lab and out in the port town who looks like he's starving and basically just he invites the dog in, and dog comes in, and now they're friends.
Yay!
And this
Now,
go ahead.
I'm a cat person, not a dog person, but even I feel bad at the description of this dog. So, good for Neb rescuing the dog. He will be best boy.
Yep.
And no one notices the dog until later. Like, not even anyone else. No one smells the dog. The dog is like expert stealth.
I'm going to go with the fact that I doubt any of these guys bathe, so I doubt they'd really be able to smell much on that ship besides themselves.
Right. Yeah. But
Plus,
yeah,
the dog hides under a table, and I mean, there's probably a lot of shadow in that galley, so probably just blends into the shadows.
And
I don't find it unrealistic how quickly they bonded, because, like, you know, my dog now has a little bit of lab in her, and they love everybody. Like, you pet them on the head, and they're just like, I will be your best friend forever and ever.
I just met you and I love you.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah, Labradors are very friendly.
Yep, and hey, the kid feeds him salt pork rinds. So yeah.
Yep.
Good. Yeah.
And eventually,
of course he's gonna love the kid.
Yep. And then bringing us right back to Earth, Vanderdecken like pokes his head into the galley, and he's like, "Where the heck is everyone?" And Neb just kind of shrugs, and Vanderdecken's like, "I'll be right back. I'm going to borrow that knotted rope that Petrus has been using." And his entire crew, instead of actually doing what they were supposed to, or at least doing what they're supposed to and then getting drunk, decided to skip to getting completely wasted. And he beats them and smacks them around, and during this, he drops the emerald gem onto the deck, and Petros, being a complete moron, decides to grab it. And while I don't think a captain should cripple his crew, I am totally down with the captain crushing Petros's hand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down for it happening to him. However, any description of badly injured hands just makes me want to just curl up and go, no, because I can just like phantom pain.
He didn't need to take it quite that far, because we're outright told he didn't just step on the hand to get the point across. Mm-hmm. He broke it.
Yep.
And crushed it, essentially.
Like, shattered it, yeah.
Yeah, like he stepped on it, it's like, okay, and then he's like, no, I'm going to do it again, and wham! And he loses use of that hand for the rest of the story.
Well, the rest of his life, technically.
This is true.
We already said he's going to die, so.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't stick, but... Oh, sorry, spoilers.
Granted, so does everybody. Well, we'll see.
So the next...
when I saw... I will say, as a comparison of darker tone, when I made the comparison also to Scrag the Weasel, and Redwall, I then remembered, oh, that was the one that Cheese Thief killed by stepping on his neck. And then I was like, okay, maybe this story isn't much darker.
So, speaking of Scrags, when they're finally out to mainland Atlantic Ocean, they decide, hey, we're going to be passing by the Caribbean if we know what we're doing. Let's mutiny. So, hey, riot!
Let's kill the captain. All right.
Oh, yeah, that goes over real well.
Yeah, that doesn't turn out too well for them. And they discuss this in front of Neb, who they believe like, oh, he won't tell anyone. He's no threat to us. And Neb's like thinking, I really should totally do something about those guys that want to kill my captain. Because they're psychotic, and the captain is less psychotic.
Yep.
But effectively, the captain doesn't see it coming, except... so Neb rushes out to help protect him, and looks like Neb and the captain might die in this attempt. And oh, hi, Den. Yeah, yep. The dog's name is Den.
And the captain. This whole struggle feels less like the Redwall fights. It's like an actual struggle between people, and the captain. We get to see like why they should fear him is he grabs Scrags and just tosses him off the ship. Literally.
Yep.
And it continues to show him as like this domineering character who stands above the rest of the crew, and like why they should fear him.
Mm-hmm. Vanderdecken's a lot like Farago, but somehow better, like all the business with only occasional bouts of murder and none of the false pretenses of smiles and geniality.
Mhm.
Right.
No, we're outright told he never smiles. So.
Yeah, like they know who he is, they know how dangerous he is. He gets that across every day, and which is why these three decide to do that. Like they believe it's going to take all three of them to take him down. Not one of them is brave enough to do this by themselves.
So, and because his first mate just went over the side of the ship. Hey Vogel, you're new first mate. So
You've been promoted.
the literal definition of Klingon promotion.
And yeah, and Vanderdecken at first wants to hang the other two conspirators, but Vogel then steps up, and we get again. This feels more realistic than with the Redwall villains, where Redwall villains at times kind of carelessly just kill their subordinates or throw them off of high locations. We're told that not every single crew member is a disposable lackey. Like they need this crew for the ship to work. And if the captain hangs these two, it's they already say like, look, you one of them is gone. We can't do anything about that. If you kill the two of them, we're going to be undermanned.
Yep.
So the cap's like, yeah, good point. Cut the Russians by half, because I'm sure they'll be able to do their job at half strength. And and when they're not at work, you're going to chain them to their cabin.
Yep.
Oh no,
And-
the chain locker. That's where they keep all their excess chain.
Ah,
Yep.
No,
And-
seriously, that's
Oh.
a thing.
Oh. And he also says, by the way, this kid and dog helped me, so now they're made men. You can't touch them.
They got promoted too.
Yep.
yep, and they're going to sleep in my cabin, because, they're...
Because
They
I
said-
trust them.
And everyone's
and-
like, but wait, he's the cook. And it was like, where's Petros? Why aren't you doing anything, Petros? Get back in your kitchen.
One-handed cook, go.
Where did Petros learn to cook anyway? Did he learn from Captain Slip?
Probably.
I mean, we're told when he makes his edible, but the fact that an untrained kid is better at it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And
Then we get
also real like there's definitely less focus on the food than in the Redwall stories.
oh yeah,
Though what Neb actually does make does sound kind of tasty.
it does. Yeah. It's salt cod or salt pork and the occasional pie. So,
Mhm.
and at this point, the crew is definitely more wary of him, but mostly, I don't think anyone's really thinking about mutiny. Trying to stage another mutiny because the two of the three mutineers are just kind of, they see what happened to them.
Yep. And we get like moments of Vogel kind of trying to appease both sides where there's a scene where it looks like the crew is kind of threatening towards Neb and Den. By the way, Neb names the dog Denmark, so he calls him Den. And Vogel sees that they're like threatening them, and he's like, "Look, leave them alone unless you want to get in trouble." And then he also looks at at Neb and is like, "Look, just do your job and get out of here before things get bad."
Mhm.
And even at the captain at one point, when it gets the morale gets really bad, basically tells the kid, "You stay here and don't open up the door except for anyone but me."
Yeah.
He outright says, "If this goes bad, they're gonna kill you and eat your dog." So
Yep.
And he's not exaggerating because the crew literally says at points, "Have you ever tried dog before? I hear it's very tasty." So it's like, okay, they're not joking.
Nope.
That's chilling.
Yeah.
You'd eat a dog.
I mean, in some parts of the world, they do.
I know.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think I would ever want to eat dog, though. I think the texture would probably be a little rough.
Ah, hilarious.
add that to the pun folder. So the rest of the voyage is, I mean, it's not bad. It stretches out, but Brian does a very good job of just depicting on how day in, day out sailing in the era would have been kind of boring because you're just kind of moving from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Yes, we do get storms at the end of this section, which are kind of terrifying. But
Well, like I had said earlier, it's very different from like in the Bellmaker, where in the Bellmaker, it's like they're having this adventure on the high seas, and yeah, the ship gets damaged, but don't worry, we'll find a way to get through this, and even though there's a shark, we'll find a way to stop it. Here, it's look, they're dealing with scurvy, they're dealing with very real things, and they're dealing
Oh
with
God.
trying to keep
Yeah.
this ship going while
Mhm.
even during the extreme cold.
Oh yeah, that scurvy part made me cringe. Something fierce.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
Maybe,
it even says that some of them lose like fingers and toes to frostbite.
Yep.
and then teeth to scurvy.
Scurvy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I
however,
I
there is good
I
news.
recently listened. Okay,
There's
go
good.
ahead. Go.
What's the good news?
Petros gets washed off the ship and falls into the sea and is never seen again.
Sort of.
Yay!
Well, he's never seen alive again.
Yeah. It's actually, and this makes sense, I wouldn't even think about it, but they're outright told that they stretch ropes across decks to basically hold on to if you have to move across ship during the worst storms. Not that you want to. And
Mhm.
Petros doesn't take this very seriously, or maybe it's because he's got only one hand to really work with, but yeah, here comes a giant wave, and bye, Petros!
You won't be missed.
I was gonna say we won't miss you.
Because after
So
that,
long. Don't forget to write.
Have a nice trip.
farewell.
Yeah.
And
But just
What
a
a way to
rewind
go,
first.
huh?
Oh. Just to rewind for a second, I listened to a podcast recently on scurvy, and it really was kind of terrible to, learn what it is and how it affects the body. And it basically comes down to your body is not producing enough vitamin C, so it starts to cannibalize tissue to try to get the nutrients it needs, and it will attack muscles and fats and lipids, and that's why teeth fall out because, well, suddenly your gums are shrinking, your hair falls out because, well, your body can't afford to produce it anymore, and eventually your heart could literally burst because it's tearing itself apart.
Lovely.
It's not.
So
Yeah,
basically, your body consumes itself to death.
exactly.
Ugh.
It's terrible, but it can be instantly reversed. I mean, you eat something with vitamin C in it, and the condition reverses itself within very short period of time. Like within a week, you're fine.
Oh wow.
Excuse me, I need to go eat a few oranges.
I was just gonna say that. Yep, I got some Halo oranges in my refrigerator. I'm just gonna go grab one of those, and I'll be right back. No, just kidding.
I got some emergency down in the kitchen. I think I'm gonna go grab some.
Yep.
Yeah, so at this point, Neb and Den are reduced to the kitchen, and the captain says, "Don't open the door except for me, because this is going to get worse."
Yeah.
And because they're trying to sail around the tip of the South America, because there is no Panama Canal at this point.
And they try it once, it does not work, and it makes morale go down more. And we have a moment. This is kind of an off-screen sort of thing, but it's still kind of dark because, they do say it's not paranoia if they're actually out to get you. So I can't really say Vanderdecken is paranoid here. Is he's like, hang on, I'll be right back. He leaves, comes back in, and starts talking to himself while writing a log saying, I hung one of the crew.
Yep.
Oh yeah, one of the other mutineers.
Yep. And I was like, at first I thought that it was like, oh, that's a lot darker than Redwall. Then I remembered how Farrago, in this comparison, skinned one of his cronies alive. So,
Yeah. I mean, of the era, captains had considerable power at sea, basically to conduct hearings and basically small-scale trials if they were dealing with mutiny. Wasn't recommended. They were supposed to bring people back to the mother country for trial, but hey, sometimes it happened. I mean, you see elements of this not just in our fiction and media. You see this in science fiction, where you got ships. Admittedly, then I'm nerding about Star Trek here. You see that more in the original series than you do the other ones, but no, it's still a thing.
Yep. Heck, there's an
Well,
entire episode of The Next Generation that talks about this, the Drumhead,
Mhm.
where they're literally, it turns into like a witch hunt on the ship because this one admiral is convinced there's a conspiracy, and Picard straight up says this is just like a Drumhead trial.
Yep.
Well, a lot of the naval comparisons in Star Trek come from the fact that it's pretty much a one-for-one comparison to the early submarine dramas and narratives from the early 1900s.
Mhm. So, and yeah, at this point, the crew is pretty much outright out to get the captain. And Vogel, for his own credit, tries to talk the captain not going through around Cape Horn a third time, because he's just like, we're out of food.
Mm-hmm.
We need to turn back, stock up, and try this again. And the captain takes out what sounds like a very awesome gun, and yeah, kaboom.
Yeah, and it like the description of it is very brutal too, where it's just he doesn't even open the door, he just shoots him through the door and like destroys most of the door to his own room. Like this kind of shows how crazy he's kind of become at this point where before he's like I can stay in my cabin, it's safe there. He just blew open the door to his own cabin.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when everything goes crazy, the voice of reason must go away. So Vogel was the voice of reason, and that was it.
Yep. And at this point, the captain basically says, "Screw you guys! I can sail us by ourselves around this third attempt." And basically, the storms, because he's fighting the Antarctic winter while this is going on next door, don't let him. And at this point, he just basically says, "Hey, God, screw you!
Yeah.
You're throwing this weather at me."
It just reminds me of the song from Book of Mormon, which I can't say right now, but that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is intense too. Like it's
Yeah.
also again it's very different from the other series where it's just everything is going horribly, the ship is falling apart, and everyone is scared to death because Vanderdecken has now essentially gone like, darn it, God, you're forcing, you're against me, and now the entire superstitious crew is like, oh God, oh no, he's threatening God. We're all gonna die.
Speaking of which,
Yep, literally the wrath of God.
Yep.
what it's described it's basically bathed in green fire. It's neither male nor female, and an angel descends and says, "Hey, Vanderdecken, sucks to be you."
Yep.
I found some things you lost, by the way. Here's the ghosts of the crew members that died or you killed.
And yeah, I'm gonna curse you for sailing for all eternity. Yeah, you have fun with that. And oh, hey, nice kid and dog, you're okay.
You're cool.
But the rest of the crew, who is pretty much just innocent here, sucks to be you.
Yep, you go to hell, and you die.
No, literally, they can't because
Oh yeah, that's it. You go to
they're
purgatory.
cursed. No.
Do not
They're
pass
cursed for all
go.
eternity.
It's not even purgatory.
Cursed for all eternity to sail on this ship. There's nothing else.
And you're still out of food.
And yeah, that's a terrible fate.
Yep.
So yeah, and the kid and the dog are swept over the sides, but they're spared because they're innocent. Yep. Never, like I said, never mind the rest of the crew that were just trying to do their job. But okay.
I don't know.
They're not that innocent.
Yeah, that's the end of part 1.
Yep.
And part 2, The Shepherd, kicks off with Neb and Den being washed up on a shore, and suddenly they realize they're able to mentally communicate with each other. And they celebrate. Cool. Like they actually have something to celebrate and be happy about, and they just like hug, like he hugs the dog, and it's nice, heartwarming.
Ned can talk, by the way, complete without he's no longer mute. He can talk. Yep. So, and like we said, somehow he has magic telepathy with the dog.
I'm not complaining.
No,
talking
neither
to
am
the
I.
dog is cool.
Hey,
Yep.
if I could talk to my dog, that'd be friggin' awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and then, I think, what would my dog say to me? And it'd probably be like, "Hey, human, I want some bacon. It's been a while since I've had some bacon. Can I have some bacon? Hey, look, a bird. I'm gonna chase it. I want some bacon."
It's
Only one thing smells like
bacon!
only one thing smells like bacon, and that's bacon. Please tell me what's in the bag. I can't read.
And
Yeah,
doesn't know it's not bacon.
yeah.
Where my parents' dog Case is like, okay, I want to go outside. No, I changed my mind, but I'm gonna stand here at the door for no apparent reason until you bribe me
Sounds
with
like-
a treat.
Sounds like the dog's part cat.
Ugh, she's neurotic. I love that little miniature schnauzer, but she is neurotic.
The two of them are then found by the first genuinely kind person we have met in this entire book.
Yay,
Mhm.
Luis.
Yep, Luis the shepherd, and he's immediately sees them as like, oh, he's used to pieces of ships washing up there because only a crazy person would sail a ship around there. And he takes them in and gives gives them food and gives them a place to sleep. And at first does ask, how they got there, and then says like, no, you know what? You don't need to tell me if you don't want to. Please eat, rest, recover. And he's just being a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Luis is a good guy. He'd probably get the 1620 Reddit equivalent of an AMA and get gilded at least twice.
So, but yeah, he's just a genuinely good person, and he basically helps nurse him back to health, and he's a shepherd. And
Yep. And he notices that there's definitely is something different about Neb and Den because we do a 3-year time jump, and he notices that the two of them don't age anymore, or don't age. And while he is curious about this, he doesn't push Neb for any information. It's like, look, if you have secrets, they're yours to keep, and I just want to be your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And this is nice. It's like it's like a nice, calm. Obviously, this is the transition chapter of the book, but it's something. It's very, very different from the first part, and intentionally. And we get to see that Neb and Den actually be able to enjoy a life for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's implied a couple of years, and they become shepherds, and they really enjoy life.
Yep.
Yeah, and then Den likes to yell at the sheep, and it's funny.
Oh yeah.
He's like, "You guys are really dumb. What are you doing?"
And even Neb asks him, like, why haven't you taught them to talk yet? It's like,
Yep. And Den's like, look, what would they really say? All they know is to eat, sleep, and look stupid.
a valid point.
They ba, and they don't know what ba means.
Yeah. Where he's like, well, you go grr and ruff, and he's like, but those mean something.
Yeah.
It's like the first genuinely just like fun little moment in the story, and it's really nice.
I have a question though.
Mhm.
If Den can understand Luis,
Mhm.
can't understand Luis initially, and Neb can understand Luis, and they can understand each other, is Den technically thinking in Dutch or another language entirely?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Maybe
Smoke bomb.
maybe Neb can speak dog.
He's
That
speaking
makes
dog.
sense.
I honestly read this as when the angel gave them their superpowers, that he made the kid who couldn't speak and now be able to speak. He basically, I won't say omnilingual, but he gave him what he needed to, live.
Yeah. I think with the discussion, it's kind of described this way, like the discussion that the talks that Den and Neb have are kind of just like on a different mental level. Like it's being translated for us, but they're communicating in just like their own little language. Like they understand each other on some weird level.
So they're speaking in binary. Okay, I got it.
Yes. And it fully translates 1011010001.
Yeah.
And I like how Luis, just trust that Neb and Den have their connection. And he's like, "Oh, were you guys talking?" And Neb goes, "Yes, Den was saying that your food is delicious." And he goes, "Oh, he's smart too."
Yeah.
That was cool. Unfortunately, because anything good in this book apparently so far has to come to an end. A storm comes in, and Luis, Neb, and Den have to save the sheep. And Luis, while trying to save one of the sheep, falls down a cliff. And I honestly did not remember what happened next, but I just got the feeling like I kind of knew like Luis wasn't going to make it because it's right here where he first calls Neb his son.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's heartbreaking. Like that's great that he sees Neb like that, but it's like, oh God, he just said that for the first time when after suffering injuries. Like, oh no.
Yeah, and then when they move him, he cries like a wounded animal. I'm like, oh,
Right.
yep.
Yeah.
At least make him comfortable. So.
Yeah.
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 It made me genuinely teary-eyed. I haven't like had that gut punch in forever, and it was like, oh,
Yep.
I've forgotten how brutal that was.
Yeah. And as the two of them go to sleep while trying to make sure that Luis is okay, the angel comes to them and says, you at least, you made his last years happy ones. Yeah. So like at least for this time he wasn't alone, and he got to be with, like he got to know this boy that he eventually considered to be his son.
Yep.
And that pretty much ends this first part. The angel's like, hey, when you hear a sound of a bell, which happens to be one of the sheep.
Ram.
Yeah.
An old bellwether.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they got to get out. Gotta move on. So, kind of in like one of the more chilling bits in here, I actually like. He doesn't bury Luis. He actually gives him a Viking funeral. So, not at sea, in his house. So, very Full Metal Alchemist. Actually, when the image came to mind. I know Jeremy needs to rewatch that recently, so that's why I brought it up.
Which one? Sorry, I was double checking something. What? I'm sorry. I was taking a moment to double check where we're going to read to for the next podcast, and I completely missed that. I apologize.
I said I was mentioning how they give Louise a Viking funeral in a very Full Metal Alchemist-esque moment. They burn down the house.
Ah, okay, yes. Oh, I just recently finished rewatching that now, so yeah, that's God, that episode.
It's just sad.
It's one of those sad episodes. At least we're not referencing episode 25.
You still need to watch Brotherhood. So, but yeah, that ends per parts 1 and 2, which pretty much is just the setup here. We're not even into the main chunk.
Nope.
Oh, so far, genuinely, I like this. It's a different tone than what we're used to. It's not quite what Seven Strange and Ghostly Tales was, which was for an obviously younger audience. But I like it.
Yep, these didn't grab me in quite the same way as the Redwall books did. Like, I don't see myself kind of constantly wanting to reread these, especially as we get further into the series. I have some major problems with the third book, especially, but I won't say anything about that now. So yeah, I mean, but this was enjoyable to get back to, mainly because I cannot resist a good dog story. I just love dogs. I've always had an attachment to them. So,
Oh yeah, I very much enjoyed going back, and even though we're not very far into the book yet, it's bringing back a lot of great memories and a lot of very painful memories.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to finishing this, and I'm looking forward to eventually when we get to the next book, my favorite, because we got some tastes in this book that are going to become full-blown like story arcs in the second book.
Yeah, I remember enjoying the second book a lot too.
All right, so Jeremy, where are we going to read to for the next episode?
So, part 3, The Village, starts off at chapter 11.
Mhm.
And so we are going to go from chapter 11 and stop at chapter 28 next time.
Okay.
Are we going?
Hmm?
Are we going through 28 or stopping before 28?
Stopping before 28. So we'll read chapters 11 through 27.
Got it.
Sounds
All
good.
right, we'll put that in the our communication on that. So,
Yep.
yes, listeners, this is going to be a different month. We are going to have practically an episode out every week.
We spoil you.
Yes. We are.
Shh! Spoiling!
And come the end of the month into November, yes, we will get to Pearls before the end of the year. That'll be the last book we cover. I'm looking forward to getting back to the books in Genuine. Although this is a nice change of pace.
Yeah, like I haven't reread this one in a very long time, and I have a much hazier memory of Castaways than I do of a lot of the Redwall books. I remember the general outline of what's going to happen in book 3, but that's about it. So I look forward to revisiting this.
I've never read these, so this is all new to me. So, by the way, you can find us at recorderonthewall.com is our primary website. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Google Play Podcast. I am still working on getting us on Spotify.
Come on, Spotify.
No, that's more me being lazy, honestly.
No, come on, Pete.
Come on, Pete. Come on, Peteify.
Hey, do you know what I do for this show? You can find us at Twitter at ROTWPod. And our primary contact email, if fans want to ask us questions or say if you hate or love us, it's rotwpod at gmail.com. We would even love iTunes reviews even more because, hey, they give visibility to the show. Yep. We're not the only Redwall podcast anymore, as we've said, but we did start it first. So there.
We did.
First.
And, is that everything? Yeah.
Yep.
I believe so.
We're also on the official. Did you mention the official
Redwall
forums?
Yeah, you know what? You do that.
Okay. We are also on the official Redwall forums, and you could find some thread on the Eulalia subreddit as well.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, our Redwall does exist, but it has nothing to do with this franchise.
Oh.
Well,
do I want to know?
We recently didn't we get it back from the people who had it? Didn't they let it lapse?
I think they did. I think our Eulalia has talked about submitting to the great mods of Reddit itself to lay claim to it.
The Reddit's command.
All right, folks. I'm Pete. I'm your Papa Abbott.
I'm Jeremy. Your
I'm
spooky
Matthias,
storyteller.
There.
Blah.
I'm Matthias, and Jeremy just took the wind out of my sails.
I'm Katie, and I'm going to try to figure out how to telepathically communicate with my dog.
Let us know how that goes.
Okay.